Okay, we are officially ready for our last assembly. And yes, believe it or not, this is my take 2 yet again. I don't think there's one single video I didn't do more than once. I found a new way to mess it up. But anyhow, we're gonna just cross our fingers. I'm not very good at crossing my fingers. We're gonna cross our fingers that this will work, this one. I sure hope so, because I had to literally take all the stem wire off and the leaves off. So we're really gonna hope for this one. Okay. Now, let's talk about that. Here's our flower, and I do call it our flower because we made it together. I consider that you guys were here with me, helping me make it. So this is our flower. So it's kind of special, which means I'm not even gonna put it in an arrangement yet. We'll just keep it, just for fun. Now, so far, we have the calyx already attached. Now, doing this part is definitely gonna be a bit of a challenge underneath the, camera. It's pretty low down here. So I'm hoping for the best. Hoping for the best. So anyhow, like I keep saying that, let's get these attached. There's really nothing special about the way we're going to assemble this. In fact, I was going to say, hey, you've probably already assembled a flower like this. And, you're probably sick of hearing me talk about assembling stuff. But then I figured, we got into this together. We should get out of it together. So let's do it. And then we're going to have a little discussion at the end on composition stuff and arrangements and etc. Finish it out, and then one last video after this with a mum challenge that I'm going to leave you with. I think it's a good one, though. I think it is. But I'm keeping it. It's top secret. Okay, well, one of you knows. Only one of you. Okay, so, but soon you all will. So I think it'll be a fun challenge at the end. But in the meantime, let's finish this guy out. So I'm going to pick 2 of these style. I like these for this one. This is the side loop style. And I normally put the, which most people probably do, the slightly smaller one towards the top. But I was looking at well, anyhow, so sometimes the smaller ones do go towards the bottom, interestingly enough, but not on this one. I'm going to do the smaller one towards the top. And I actually kind of keep them straight out when I'm going to assemble so that they don't get in my way if they're all curved and stuff when I'm doing the wire and the tape. So let's do the first one first here. Obviously, we're going to do the first one first. It's kind of a weird thing to say. Let's do the second one first. No. Then by definition, it's the first. Okay, so now what we want, I know I'm a little extra rambly today because this thing, not that the splint's actually cool, the wrist underneath it is a bit mad at me. I just realized I didn't tamp this one down. So make sure they're tamped down again with your stem wire. You don't have to do that, but I definitely prefer it because look, again, you can really see the difference of when I can, of when it's flattened and when it's not. And I want it to be really close on that stem wire. And in fact, let me check the other one too. Wondering, yep, that one I smashed. You shouldn't smash it. I shouldn't say smash. Tamp. Tamp is our word. We just want tamp it down. Okay. So, and we want a nice, clean 90-degree angle right here at the base. Now you can either use your pliers for that and, make a nice, fast 90-degree angle. We want it really straight. Or the other thing to do is just to bend it really fast. And because if you bend it slow, the slower you bend it, the more curvy it gets. Though, of course, now it's creased, so it's not doing that. But it will get be something like that. We don't want that. We want it to be straight and flat. So either do a fast turn, and that'll give you 90 degrees, or use this. We want this to be nice and clean on here. And then I use 30. I don't know. It's not a rule. Whatever. I'm going to go back to, again, by the time I'm done with this one, I think I will have used a lot of my overdone black wire that I overbought. Let's find the end here. So this is 32. I find that 30 is more solid. It's up to you. It is a little more noticeable in their stem wire. I don't think that's a horrible thing. I really don't. In fact, I definitely would consider it. So either one there. Oh, by the way, when you bend this down, sometimes it might pull this bottom row out. Don't worry too much. We're going to get back to shaping it anyway. So I normally put these maybe about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches below the bottom of the calyx. The bottom of the calyx is the measurement I've given you. So probably about almost 2 inches below the bottom of the flower. And then we're going to wrap, and it's going to be kind of hard to wrap under here. So I'm going to really try to make sure the problem was what happened last time was that the camera was too far out, or too close up. And so even though I was actually underneath it, it just didn't show enough of what was going on. So I'm trying to really make sure I'm getting there. Now, I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to cut the wire because otherwise it's going to be too hard to do underneath this. So I'm going to cut a little bit of the wire off so that I don't have to have it get tangled. Oh no. What did I just do? Oh, for goodness sake. Okay. Remember what we talked about in the very beginning? Not a professional. Making these videos has been a lot of fun. I'll probably make a few others just for fun always. Okay. I hope I just didn't just totally knock that off. No, looks good enough. Okay. So, you know, do it kind of fast. You can do a lot of wraps right underneath. You know, you want to do a lot right underneath it. But then after that, you can space them out more. And I go probably another 1.5 inches down. It doesn't have to be even. It's just there. And so, you know, right about where you feel, you know, where it looks like it makes sense to you. You know, so right about there. Somehow I got a little bit of a part picked out here. This one's already flattened. We're going to go like that. Get it to go kind of fast. I don't like to put it straight across because that's a little bit too perfect. So I guess what I would say to do is to put it just a little bit off kilter, you know, across, but not straight across. But if you want to do straight across, that's cool too. And then again, just do a couple of tight wraps right at the top. Right at the top. Just like now it's going to end up almost looking like it's straight across because of the way I'm holding it, but that's okay. Not the end of the world. Okay. And I didn't cut off quite enough wire to go all the way down. I kind of knew that was going to happen. I mean, I did get enough below it, but I'm going to cut off a little bit more just to be safe. The thing about leaves that worries me is that, you know, reason I get so worried about them is that they're floating out on their own, right? So they're not like, they don't have other petals around them to hold them up or calyx or anything else. So really want to make sure that they're attached, right? So I'm going to do a little bit more wire up here. And I normally would do this to like the side of my work table and kind of a little bit more quickly because I can hold it a little bit differently. So hopefully you're not thinking that this is as painstaking as it has to be. It does not have to be this painstaking. So in fact, normally how I like to hold it is just to hold the actual, if I could do this to the side of my table, I like to hold the actual flower and then just twist it at this point like we did in the beginning around. That's not getting tight enough, but you get the gist. So whatever works for your hands. So I'm going to say that's long enough for right now. I'll save some of that wire for later. Now, I always save it and I always forget to use it. No, that's not true. But I could be better about it. Now, here comes the next part. I think I said this before and I'm going to say it again. I like floral tape for my stems. I super appreciate when people do them in, you know, I think it's awesome. It looks pretty. It's very decorative to me in floss or with beads. You know, it's very decorative and it's pretty and it's great. But I guess for me, I like it to look like that old vintage botanical print. I want it to look like old paper. I want it to look like old paper. And it looks like old paper when it's like this. So, hang on, let me see one little thing here. So I like to use floral tape, and I actually prefer it. So there's a lot of different greens. I would use a dark green for this, for obvious reasons, right? I'm going to use this one. I don't know if it's my favorite one because I don't mark it, and I totally should mark these things. I should put a little star in there, a little like heart or something like, I love you, floral tape, but I don't. So this one I think is pretty good. I'd give it a B+ if I had to grade it. I've had some bad floral tape. Now, I'm sure y'all have experiences like that. Now, let's get started with this. So I'm going to put it right below, about 1/2 inch below the calyx. That's how I do it, and I'm sure it's how everyone, I don't know, I think it's probably how everyone does it. And then I'm going to wrap up to the bottom of the calyx. This is the part that got really hard to show because the camera is so close. So I wouldn't normally quite do it this clunkily. Is clunkily a word? I don't know. It's one of those words that if it isn't a word, you probably know what I mean. So I'm wrapping it real tight right up at the bottom there. Not over the beads, but I'm doing a few layers. Notice I've gone around a few times. At least 5 times. Now I'm going to start pulling it down. Now you're going to see I do this one thing that, I don't know, it just might be my little weirdness. But again, it's all about sort of fortifying around the leaf joint, for lack of a better word, right where the leaf meets the stem. So what I do when I get there is get real close, make sure I'm getting like right down in there, getting it in there. So then I go under, and if it bends a little bit, that's fine. If it like wrinkles up on itself, that's fine. And then after I go under, turn it around, and I go back up over. And on this one, now make sure you're always stretching your tape as you go so it's activated. The wax is activated, as it were. So then I go back up over the top, and I pull it through. Now, this is where if you have really thin tape, you might break it. And if you break it, so what? If it tears, you just go back up and start again. Just don't even peel the stuff off. Just leave it there. But you'll get to know, you should know like your tapes. You should know when, now that doesn't mean I rip it all the time, but you should kind of be at least somewhat aware of when it's starting to get to that point, right? So then, see how it's kind of folded there? That's okay. It's like kind of folded like that. That's okay. It actually makes it stronger. I kind of want that. So then I'm going to bring it back down again. And if you want to go over again, you can. You know, we're really just trying to make sure that has some support around it. And this tape actually gives it some support. So up, over and under, over and under. And then, you know, I normally just do it once, but these are kind of longer. I already feel that this is stronger, that this is less floppy just from that. It really is. I mean, it might not be, you know, a ton, but it helps. And why not? Because you're doing it anyway. So why not? Okay, let's pull that guy out. So again, we're going to go down to the next one. And I actually realized I kind of normally spin I hold it a different way, but that's okay. I can't under here. So trying to keep it kind of smooth, but the trick with floral tape is if it isn't smooth, you can make it smooth. It's kind of like, you know what I'm going to say about the wire? Like I say about the wire, I can say the same thing about the tape. And I'll show you what I mean when we're done. So again, once I get right down into that joint, see, I just tore it because I was trying to like prove a point. So watch what we do, which is actually a good teaching moment, right? So it just tore. This one actually doesn't normally tear. It might be a weak spot. Sometimes with different wires, they just have weak spots due to like bad random chemistry of the way they're put together there. So I just roll over it. It's no big deal. Doesn't bother me one bit. Shouldn't bother you one bit. So I get down into that joint. If it keeps happening, then you need to get a different tape. That tape isn't working for you. And then I come back up to the top, kind of fit it in there, fit it right in there. I don't care about that little wrinkle. I'm going to come back around. If you want to do it again, I normally only do it once. This is probably maybe the first time I've ever done it twice, but these are really floppy. I don't know, maybe the first time, but it feels like I very rarely do it twice. But it already feels more substantial. Now, normally, if I wasn't worrying about being under the camera at this point, I would, I actually hold the flower and I spin like my hand with the tape. Like I spin the flower, I hold like my tape hand steady and I actually spin the flower, which works better for me and my wrists. So to get it down and smooth, so I'm gonna pull some out here. Now I know that I'm not gonna, no, that's not true. I have once in a while used all 18 inches, but very rarely do I use 18 inches of stem wire. Like it's gonna get cut off at some point. Now all this stuff, just smooth it down as you go, smooth it down, get it underneath there. Now this would be where I would take it off the side of the table right now and just like spin the heck out of it like this, upside down on the side of the table. I don't even think you can see it really because it's probably focusing on my hand, which was part of the problem before. But I mean, I can just go a lot faster that way. Okay, so I'm gonna spin it all the way down. And in fact, then I start, again, this is, the fact that I can even do it this fast in this position, I'm actually surprised by it, to be quite honest. So, I'm going to take it to the side just for a second. Okay, so now that I took it to the side and I got that all done, it went pretty fast. One thing I want to show you though, I mean, I'm going to cut this off, so I'm not going to use 18 inches. So it doesn't matter. But if I do, I almost always, I'd say almost 95% of the time, 90%, no, 95 is probably closer. And we're going to talk about this after we finish this, I actually pot my flowers and leaves and whatever into permanent arrangements of smaller, in smaller kind of low profile planters. Hang on a second, we just slipped. And so the reason I'm saying this is that I'm rarely, like when they go out in public, worried so much about what the bottoms are because they don't come out of vases. But for a vase one in particular, if people want to rearrange them, you know, I want to make sure that, especially if it's someone that I don't know personally and they're out with my things, I don't want these things to poke them. So, because that would be bad. And so I rolled it about after I decide my length. I'm just demonstrating this here. I wouldn't even worry about it here because I know I'm going to cut it. But if I do know that the length is, and I have it pre-cut, or I'm going to cut it later, I would go back and cover it up by getting about 1/2 inch down here like that. See how it's about 1/2 inch, not 1/2 inch, halfway down. So about 1/4 inch over is 1/4 inch on here, 1/4 inch flattened down. Oh shoot, I still have alcohol ink on my fingers, so don't be scared. It was yellow ochre alcohol ink, so that's fun. Anyhow, so it made my fingers look yellow all day long. And then to clean it off, you have to use alcohol, so my fingers probably look really scary. Anyhow, so bend this down. It's kind of what we did when we did the top of the wires before, to go underneath it, the very top of the wire, and then bring it back down around. And then that makes a nice little seal on this bottom where there's no, not that stem wire is that pointy, I just don't want any wire pointing, you know, possibly hurting people. So, and bring it back up. Now, bring it back up maybe 2 inches or so. Now, the thing with this, though, that I want to point out is that, you know, we can have issues with, it might not always be so sticky. This one's actually pretty good once I get it settled. But a lot of times with stem wire, you know, it's just, it's like electrical tape, right? It's not always like, you know, sometimes it's hard. Even it's supposed to stick to itself, but it might not. So you can hold it for a little bit because the heat of your fingers should activate it, but then it still might get this, right? Which is another good reason to bring this up, because then it will, less chance it'll actually really unravel. So if you get this and you want to kind of keep it pretty and you are presenting it, this is the final product at the end of the stem that you're putting in a vase for someone, you know, put a little glue stick underneath there, a little Elmer's, a little whatever, it doesn't even matter, right? A little glue stick would be perfect. I always have super glue around, which is almost like overkill, and it's hard to hold it onto it because then it sticks to your fingers. So probably glue stick or something like that would be best. And just, you know, right now we're not going to worry about it. That's why you bring it back up and see what happens. Another way, though, that can seal it, too, is if you get it all the way to the end and then chop it off right there at the end. That can sometimes, if it's certain kind of tape, seal it together, too, because the pinching of the cutting will actually seal it. So both work. That, again, is me worried about, you know, details. But, again, if this is going somewhere, you don't want, you know, the stem wires to poke people. So we got our things now. They're really flat. They're kind of, I'm going to bend it again, this poor thing. So you can see that these are not quite straight across from each other. One's pointing out this way and one's pointing out that way. So I like that. I'm not, you know, if they're straight across, so what, you know? But, and then I'm going to shape them back again. Do my shape, you know, curling it up, pushing that bottom, shaping. I know I shaped them beforehand, but that was kind of to show you how to shape them. Do the twist and turns, twist and turns, twist and turns if they got untwisted and turned. You don't have to unshape yours, by the way. You can work around it, but sometimes it does make it kind of annoying to do the wire and the tape, right? Okay, so doing our little twist and turns on the little like spikes on the side spikes. And there we go. That's our flower. We made it together. You were here with me in spirit, if not in actual person. So we made it together and it looks lovely. And I'm so glad that I got to see everyone's beautiful interpretations on these, honestly. I know you probably got sick of me going, I love it, but I do. It's so much fun to see each and every one of them. They were all very special. And it made me more appreciative of something that I've obviously done a cajillion of myself. So, you know, it brought back the spark for me. So, that being said, let's talk about what the heck we do with these things once we're done, right? So a lot of times, just for a short bit, I'm going to give an example of how I maybe pot a medium size-ish arrangement, or plant, for lack of a better word. So, I'm not going to use this one because I don't know what to do with the teal yet. You know, and I kind of just keep it separate. And if you just want to throw them in a vase or just do one at a time, you know, we've had some really interesting options. We've seen some beautiful arrangements. We've seen, you know, ones that people put together, different choices of colors. They'll put them on a wall. So many different ways you can do them. So that's a good thing to think about. Because a lot of times, I'm just going to say, especially for beginners and things, we you know, we spend a lot of time discussing patterns and designs, right? Which, of course, we're trying to make flowers. But what are we going to do with them when they're done? Do we want to put them in a vase with other flowers? Do we want to put them in a vase with a bunch of the same thing, more greenery? Do we want to pot them? How do we want to do this, right? So if you are kind of new, if you're older, if you've been doing this ages, you're probably like, why is she telling us stuff we already know? Which would be perfectly a valid thing to think. But I'm going to just say, what I do, you know, we all have kind of like a notebook, right? So I like lined paper for I hesitate to call them patterns. I even hesitate to call them designs. Let's call them notes. Notes on flower construction. So, like, for example, for whatever reason, it's open to California poppy. Haven't made one of those in ages. So, mini magnolia. So, you know, there's a variety of different things going on with this, some more involved than others. And the thing with this, though, is, you know, start keeping track. Keep track of things that you like and that work for you. And you know what? Even if you use a pattern, you might tweak it or something. So keep track of how you tweak things. You know, that works for you. You know, don't do this. This is a cautionary tale in pattern writing, or whatever you want to call it, design making. This is my carnation. When I used to do the flowers of the month, so I was doing, you know, one of every month. So this was I got to have carnation because that's January's pattern. Yeah, this is a series of laced together continuous loops. These are each how I would do, because it was a multicolored carnation, because the different meanings too of it. This was, each of these represents one continuous loop. Well, here I did 3 of these and 5 of those. That's how many I did of them. But then the numbers of the different colors I would do. It's a tri-colored one. Yeah, that looked bad enough, right? You thought that was bad? That looked bad? There's a whole other page of it. That's just one flower. What the heck was I thinking? Needless to say, I have not made a carnation in a while. That was way back at the beginning. So, anyhow, you know, and then what's going on here? I don't know. But the point is, have fun with it. Make your patterns. Make stuff up, you know? I have so many different poppy ones. We might do a poppy video at some point. That I actually just started tracing the leaves after I'd make them, or the petals, because I would kind of freestyle the petals, and then, you know, trace them if I liked them. You know, poppy 3. I don't know what's going on here. So, oh, the cosmos one. It's such a simple flower. It takes forever to figure out, right? What the heck was this? How many times did I do this? It was like 15 different, and that's the leaves for it. What are you going to do? So, sometimes the most simple flowers end up being like a pansy. So anyway, my point with this is have fun with it. You know, take notes, make stuff up, you know, go back, figure it out. This is one of my favorite ones I figured out, this oak leaf geranium. It was supposed to be for language of flowers for friendship. And so I was making it for someone. And I really like the way it came out. I mean, you can't tell from this, right? But anyhow, so, and this was going with it too. So anyhow, what does that mean? Long friendship. Okay, well, that's good. So anyhow, take notes. Even if you use someone else's patterns, write down how you might adapt them for you. So anyway, this is just part of the process fun I was just sharing, because I love to hear other people's stuff too. So tell me your stuff. I love to hear it. Now, the next thing I was going to say is, so that is a good thing. If you don't already have one, probably if you've been doing this for ages, you have one of those, your pattern or whatever design notebook. But what I also like to do, because this little part now, our little digression, is going into composition, arrangements. That's one thing we talk about a lot, about patterns and designs and who does what, when, how, and where. But we don't talk about what the heck we're going to do with them when we're done, right? So that might be something you also want to consider. So I know for me, I have another notebook. And so maybe you want to plan those out. We can start discussing not just patterns and designs, but composition, way we like putting things together. Like, I had a very lively conversation this evening, which was awesome, about how another member and I like to have similar interests in the way we like to put together things. So it's always fun to hear that. Now, I'm kind of superstitious. I don't use the first page of a notebook. I don't know why. I don't even know what that superstition is, but I just leave it blank. So this is what I'm talking about. Something just as simple as this. Just start thinking where you want these flowers to go. these are the beginnings. These must be really old. So this is like a 2 mum with some pussy willow and pine needles. Sound familiar? You've seen it. It might not end up exactly like this, but this is the inspiration, that the thing that makes me get going. You know, another round. Clearly I like mums. I got to get off the mum train though for a bit, because it's got a little bit intense. So you know, just leaves. I made this one, but I only made it with 1 flower, you know. So just this idea of kind of having sort of, I like this one. I was going to do it, I don't know how to pronounce it, Protea, one of those with cherry blossoms and some leaves on the side in a very round sort of way. This was supposed to be Queen Anne's lace, but it looks like a dried out lotus pod. But you know, it's supposed to be Queen Anne's lace with pine needles and branches with buds. Well, that's specific, isn't it? But that's my point. Is like, it doesn't, oh, here's a spider one with, like, I was really into really tenderly twiggy things at that point. I was going to do a lily one. Well, that's impressive, something different. So my point is, have fun with it. Start thinking about where you want these things to end up, you know, just for fun, because sometimes that you might not get there, but along, oh, I started getting really into these. Well, more on those later. Coral, I call them coral twigs. And a dahlia, that's fun, you know. Parlor domes, I like to do those, you know. So like anything, my point is have fun with it, right? This is the last one. Okay. Oh, this one I'm actually making right now out of really mini beads. And so this one's fun. It was kind of supposed to look like something from a set of a Jane Austen movie, was kind of my idea. But right now it's only about, that's actually slightly smaller than it is, but pretty close. So, you know, have fun with it. Anyway, plan it. So put composition, maybe think about that as part of your plan. You know, like what goes with spider mums? Do you want to do more spider mums? Do you want to do different little flowers with them? Pine needles? Whatever. So, in fact, we are going to do that. And because I'm not going to use the teal one right now, I'm going to actually use 2 or 3 of the ones that I showed you in the very, very first video. 3 of those 3 that I said were rejects from another arrangement. Well, now they get to be the stars. Every dog has its day. So, that part of the video I think came out okay. So I'm going to cut this one here and hope that it blends seamlessly into bringing back our old friends from video 1. Because I can't show them to you right now because they're potted now. Because I was trying to show you guys how I potted things. So let's hope it goes seamlessly there. Next stop, discussing the arrangement of 3 spider mums. Okay, this is out of sequence, but I meant to say this about dealing with floral tape. One little quick thing before we move on to the next part and show you the other flowers is that what I like to do with the floral tape when I'm working with one is you'll notice that there's ridges here. So I take, like, I don't know, something kind of nice and smooth, like the side of, I don't know, let's see. I wanted to bring this one out, but now I'm going to underneath there. So maybe like the side of forceps or the side of, you know, anything that's kind of smooth. Even like one of these guys, these like long bead scoopery things. You can use the back side of that. So what I do with these is I smooth it down. So, and you can make it almost like it's seamless, and you won't, I mean, literally you're making it seamless. Like it's taking the seams out of it. So even if you see like maybe this little like kind of crinkly part right there, you can either use your fingernail if you want to get in there. You can use something smooth on the side. These are good. They get right in there. And you can just smooth it down. And so I will actually go down the entire, kind of smoothing it down and making it, if you do this, you won't even be able to see like where the edges of the tape are. It'll make it just look like one continuous green cover, for lack of a better word. So go all the way down and just smooth it down. Just make sure you use something. This is actually really good, better than these even. And it also can get thin and get right in there. So where we did that double up tape, I said, don't worry about it wrinkling. You can go back in and just smooth it. Smooth it. I wish you could see it close up, but I basically just made that wrinkle just no longer there. So you can go in and just kind of, I just do it all the way down the wire. And if I see like right there, there's a little part, take the little tip. Gone. Gone. Just gone. Again, it's another thing we are the boss of. We are the boss of this tape. I know, I guess I can hear me say that, but it's true. A lot of this, for me at least, I realized that a lot of this was coming down to sort of not being scared anymore to make mistakes. In the beginning, like I kind of hit the ground running with a lot of different bouquets and making my own things, and that's great. But a lot of things were still, like I was just scared that things would break or this would happen or look bad. Don't be scared to make mistakes, you know? Have fun with it. So anyhow, I don't know where I got off on that tangent right here. But weird little things I do to kind of keep it nice and smooth. And now it just looks like one long, and you can kind of see the wire under that one, and that's fine, you know, but so I just smooth it on down, all the way down, even though I'm pretty darn sure at this point it's going to be underneath something. So that was just my last thing I wanted to put out there. I know this is out of sequence. I'm going to stop this and go and find our flowers now. Well, actually, I already know what those are, but go to the next segment. So off we go. I'm going to do a quick, I need a quick kind of medium-sized arrangement. And I'm actually not going to use my teal guy yet because I'm not sure what I want to do with the teal one. So instead, I'm going to use these that I actually brought out when I did my very first video where I was showing you guys the examples before we even made the teal one. Uh-oh, things are falling everywhere. So these 3 ones, they probably look familiar. Remember them from good old video 1 back in the good old days. So I don't know. We didn't have all our flowers then, so those weren't the good old days. So I'm going to use these because I think they go together better. I don't know how to do this under the camera. And then, so I'm trying to figure out what goes well with them. So for these, I'm actually going to end up, I went and sort of cannibalized. Well, I went through my kind of in-process other bouquet sort of loose flower area, for lack of a better word, and ended up thinking that these might look good with just a bunch of greenery. I didn't want to add any other flowers per se. So I tried to find as much greenery as I could possible. So I got a couple of these, which these were actually super bright, and I just painted them this evening. I put a little yellow ochre on top of them. They were actually not super bright, but for me, super bright. They were actually an emerald matte AB. And so it was just too bright for what I wanted. So I actually painted them with some alcohol ink and then blotted them with a little yellow ochre. And I think it worked out well. That's something to think about. And I'll probably be helping out with, or if anyone's interested in doing the painting stuff, I might show some demos of that at some later date. And then I had this amaranth hanging around that I made a long time ago before I even knew what they were called. I just thought it looked cool. And so I had one of those. I may or may not include that one. Other than that, I was like, oh, look, I've got this old piece of long pine needles. You know, so you can put anything with these. That's the point, is they kind of look cool, right? I'm going to go, okay, let's put some old pine needles. I don't know what the heck this was from, but apparently I made it with like a stem so that it would last forever. Like through the apocalypse or something. What's up with that stem? Jeez Louise. Okay, so, and then, you know, I apparently have a really long, another evergreen one, and this is actually an evergreen. So, and I don't know why, but I had a bunch of sprigs and a few, where'd my other one go? Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O. I had 2 of these little guys. Where did the other one go? They're not quite pussy willows because actually there's no bottom, like, hull on them, though I guess they could pass for that. I had 2 of them. I should find that. And it's really short. I don't know what I was going to put that in. And I actually kind of lightly painted them with a little bit of gray paint so that they would go gray up into the white. So again, the alcohol inks are handy. I have some Silver Dollar eucalyptus, also from something else that I didn't use. And I have this leaf that I liked, but it's shiny. A lot of scalloping on this, though, so scalloping can be fun. It's a little mangled because it's been in the back vase somewhere for a while. So I'm actually going to try to put, I can't show you guys in this, I just realized, all of these, I want to put all of these together and make sort of a, maybe we'll show you sideways. That's a lot of greenery. It's a lot more than I meant to, but I kind of liked it all together. And then I'm actually going to do an arrangement of these 3 with these sticking up in the back. That doesn't look quite like, I want them to be a little bit off kilter. So again, we're thinking about that composition. I bet you cannot even see this. This is probably ridiculous to even try to show this to you under there. You know, and then I'm going to pull some out. You know, I'm going to have the little white kind of pussy willow coming out. These, got the Silver Dollar eucalyptus. And right now I'm just holding it to see everything. I'm not so sure about this guy. And I do have another of the Pussy Willow ones somewhere, which I must have dropped while I was picking this one up. I don't know if that one's going to really play out how I want it to, so I have to kind of ponder that a little bit deeper. But it might. I like the color, and I like the fact that it's matte with these. So I'm not sure you can see. Let me see if I can pull this out a little bit. Let's pause for a moment. Okay, so there is slightly higher up on the camera. I don't know if that's how much that helps. And I did find my other little Pussy Willow, so that's cool. But what's up with the stem? I must have been putting that into a mini or something. Okay, so I'm going to... It actually kind of grew into this crazy sort of woodland bouquet is kind of what I was calling it, even though it's not like chrysanthemums are particularly woodland flowers. But it has sort of these autumnal colors to them slightly. Not so much maybe that. But this is sort of this brown and then this sort of orange thing going on. It's a orange one, though it has a green glass over it. So it's a color line with the green glass. So that definitely gives it kind of an autumn feel to me. Of course, pine needles, you know, that's definitely seasonal. So I'm going to look at it and then stick in again to kind of get a little white color in there to like kind of break it up a little bit. So I've never actually tried to arrange one lying down on a table. And then this one it's growing on me. I think it might have to stick out somewhere. I'm kind of digging it. I'm not sure. We'll see. So you could leave it something like this, obviously, as well. You'd have to elongate the stems, which you can do, but of those short ones. But you could leave something like this in a vase. But again, I kind of since I'm sending mine out into the world, you know, such as it is, they need to be a little bit more solid. So that's why I do the arrangements. So this one, I like the way they're all looking. I may or may not end up using it all, but again, it's about thinking about where do you want these flowers to go. What's the bigger picture for them? You know, we make a flower and then we stick them in a vase, but maybe you want to do more than that. I don't know. Or maybe some of them just look cool in the vase, you know, even just one at a time, you know, you could go very simplistic with it. So this is just another option, right? So this one I'm actually going to probably end up putting into this vase. This vase, it's not a vase. It's a planter from it's a Hull, vintage Hull planter. And this one doesn't have a date on it, but it's probably from the 50s. And it's kind of cool. It has this cool flow to it. And I'm having sort of a white planter phase these last few days. So it will sit something in here and then they're going to kind of come up from there and we'll see how it goes. Now, I'm trying to show you, like, so the way I go and pick a planter is I'll hold it kind of in the basic gist of the way I want the arrangement to be. And then, of course, just hold the planter up and go, what do I think? You know, does that look okay? Will that fit? I mean, I have a lot of vintage planters. It's kind of ridiculous because I hoard them because I never know which kind and when I'm going to need one. Need which kind. So I will actually go into my garage where they are on shelves and stand there for a long time just looking at them. Just going, you know, which one which one do I like? You know, which one works? Does it flow? Do the colors work? So I'm thinking that this with the white might actually be a nice contrast with the darker leaves. So we're going to give that a try. I'll show you how I put them in. I don't know if I recommend this for anyone. It works for me, and they seem to stay for years and years and years to come. Well, I've only been doing it for 3 years, but so far nothing's had any tragic moments, and they seem to be very solid, and things have had moments, challenging moments. So I'm going to try to show you how I get these in here and how I would pot them, but especially one that's shallow, right? Because this is kind of a shallow planter. But you could do tons. There's so many different varieties of, you know, you don't have to go vintage, obviously. You could do the cool modern ones. Or again, this, as it were, might even look good just sticking in a vase. I'm semi-tempted, except for the fact that I do need it to be kind of a little bit lower profile. So I'm going to pause this and figure out how I'm going to show you how I put them in the planter. Holy cow. But anyway, there was a little digression into this idea of composition. Because again, we do talk about patterns and stuff, but we don't often talk about composition. And I've seen a lot of cool examples of amazing compositions and, you know, and even on our group site. And so it would be cool if we all kind of talked about what we're, you know, kind of thought about it together as much as we do about patterns. So I'm going to go for this sort of situation. It's looking a little crowded right now. That's because I'm holding it. But it will be basically this, looking like this, but it's going to be in here. But if you're in here, sorry, if you're not worried about things going out and about in the world, then to be honest, this might look just fine just sticking in a vase as is. Now, the thing is, if you do want to make something like this, you know, and you might not have a bunch of pre-made stuff hanging out and around, you know, start, to be honest, the way that I do these things, like all this stuff, though this is mangled, sorry, these are like ones I probably made like years ago that are stuck in like a little mug in the back, or not, you know, mini vase. You know, I just kind of start making things I want to make with the filler things, you know, pine needles, if I'm doing it, you know, sometimes I'll do them long. So just start making something, you know, like obviously silver dollar eucalyptus is something, you know, in and of itself. However, what the heck is this thing? I don't know. I just wanted to make scallop leaves and I liked this bead, you know, shiny AB, you know, olivine. It's kind of cool. And so I just wanted to make a bunch of scalloped leaves. And so I don't know what this thing is. It's just something I was like, so just start making stuff. With the green stuff, it's always going to look cool, you know. And I mean, look at these. I just wanted skinny, pointy leaves. And I didn't even like the color, so I painted them, you know, to be a darker color. And so just start, you know, these little berry things, you know, kind of like, you know, use the same with these, just use the same idea. It looks like the same idea. I don't know. I didn't look at the pattern, but I'm sure it looks like the same idea as the ones you guys did for the succulent last month. So you can adapt those and make little pussy willow or even just any color berries on a branch with that little sort of design, right? So start just filling things out. You know, here's another evergreen one, like another pine in a darker green. So just start making kind of random things that use things you practice on. You want to practice, you know, basic frame leaves. Just make a bunch. But look how cool. These are all relatively simple. But, you know, when you put them together, all of a sudden they look pretty cool. You know, I mean, I think they look okay otherwise too. But, you know, and with these long pine, I wanted a long pine needle one. I actually ended up using this, but with a darker one. So all kinds of different things that you can do with them. So just start making, you know, things that you think look cool. You know, that actually doesn't look too bad in and of itself. And then off we go. We make our little bouquet. These are all things that you kind of just can make up as you go. So experiment with it. Experiment with your basic frame. Experiment with your, this is kind of like the fringe thing, I guess it's called. I just call them single stalks, but I don't think that is what it is, where you double back down inside a single row, you know, single beads, basically. You put beads on there and they go back down inside. So anyway, I'm rambling on a bit with this because I'm trying to figure out at the same time how I'm going to show me putting it into the pot. But anyhow, my point with these, if you want to make sort of a bouquet like this, just start making ones. Just start making different greenery. Have fun with it. Get all your green beads out. Have some be transparent. Some be like matte ABs, you know. Some be regular ABs. Some be matte transparent plains. You know, just have fun with it. And then look how cool. I think they look cool. Just sitting there with that, with the three kind of in front of all of that greenery. I sure hope you guys can see this. You know, and I have actually another silver dollar eucalyptus I'm not using. So I wonder, I feel like that's almost overkill though. If it isn't already. But anyhow, my point is, like, look, I'm just using basically filler. I don't know what happened to this. I think it's called an amaranth, right? I think so. I don't know. I just thought it was cool. I actually made it to stand up, and then I made it to actually be upright at first. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to make it hangy. And then I saw someone else had one like that, and they called it, I think, an amaranth. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to make it hangy instead of standing up and keep it that way. So, and these are actually pretty darn easy to make too. So I can explain that if anyone wants me to, but anyhow, so it kind of looks weird just jutting out on the side though. So I'll have to figure that one out. Anyhow, so think about how you can make your arrangement. Now I am going to pause it to figure out how to show you how I put things into a planter. But the more I hold this, the more I'm kind of like, vase? But then I can't send a vase out into the world because it might topple over. That's a tough one. But if you guys were to make one like this and then stick it in a vase, that'd be pretty darn cool. It doesn't have to be just like this, but your own leaves. So let's pause it, but there you go. Off we go. Let me pause for a second. And if I can find my button here.